Let's make sure it's working.
Says we're live.
Says we're live. Let's see here. All right, hey guys, we're here. We're here live. Just got a notification that we're good to go. I'm here with Matt Wieters, 4-time All-Star, 2-time Gold Glove winner, 10 plus years in the major leagues with the Orioles, Nationals, and Cardinals. Currently with the Cardinals. I want to thank you for being here, Matt. How you doing? How you holding up with the quarantine?
No problem, Jason. We're going good. Trying to find a way to be productive and try and find a way to get better at something each day, and at the same time enjoying the family time that I haven't got at this time of year in a long time.
How are you as a teacher? Is the question. Are you up on your math skills? And like the new math to me is crazy. I don't understand it, so I'm trying to learn it myself. But I've noticed I'm not a very good teacher. I've already expelled 2 kids, so I'm wondering how you are as a teacher.
Yeah, my oldest son he's really smart. He thinks he's smarter than I am, so he tries to tell me how to do it. So he explains it to me, and then I have to tell him to be humble and to just do his work. So I'm trying to teach life lessons more than math, but no, the teaching part is not. My dad had more of a skill doing it than I do, I think.
Yeah, it makes you appreciate all the teachers that we have out there doing the work, and it's certainly been a challenge. But like I said, we're all trying to get through it the best we can. So, kind of want to start off with just kind of talking about your early career, even like as early as high school or your youth days. Just kind of talk about what that was like for you. Were you a multi-sport athlete? Did you play other sports? When did you kind of start thinking baseball was going to be your career path?
Yeah. Really, baseball from an early age is the one thing that I knew I wanted to do, and it's really the only thing that I saw myself kind of doing. So put the mindset to working towards baseball, but still enjoyed playing all the other sports. Loved basketball. Didn't play football until my 9th grade year, and I wanted to play quarterback, but we ran the option, so that wasn't a great option for me. We didn't throw the ball enough for me, but I loved basketball all the way up. But 10th grade is when I just started playing baseball pretty much only, and started playing fall and summer because that's what I knew I wanted to do. I enjoy, and I still enjoy playing all the other sports and playing basketball when I can. But baseball was something that I felt like I had a skill set and a gift at, and I enjoyed working at it. So it was easy for me to kind of go out and work on different aspects of the game and feel like I could get better.
Sure. So when you were younger, did you feel like the other sports you played kind of helped you on the baseball field as well?
Yeah, absolutely. I still do. I think just some of the functional mobility of being able to baseball, we can make it very mechanical and very robotic, and it can work well doing that way. And it's always good to have good mechanics, but it's when things don't go quite as you planned, when injuries can happen. And that's what I think the other sports do more than anything, is they're able to allow you to adjust to a situation that you couldn't have planned for or couldn't prepared for. So that's what I think the youth sports and sports do such a good job of just being an athlete. And there's sometimes when everything's not going to go how you planned in the cage or how you threw a bullpen. So you've got to just be an athlete out there.
So when you look to be your sophomore year of high school, you feel like that was a time where you could really lock in, specialize in one sport. That's one thing that we kind of been wrestling with a little bit is, we get to a certain point where you're in high school and you've kind of narrowed down that, baseball is going to be your path. You got a chance to potentially play at a high level, whether it be college or professionally. Do you feel at that point it's a good time to dive into one sport if that's really what you want to do?
I think the key is how do you like working at it? Like, if it's something that you can go and you can work hard at something and really wear yourself out and get tired doing it and feel like, no, I'm still having fun doing this. It doesn't feel like work or it didn't feel like a job. And baseball never felt like that to me. And that's where high school, you kind of get to a point where, okay, this is like a game to me. This is like, yeah, I know I'm working hard and trying to get better, but it is still something that's like a game to me. And that's why the other sports where I enjoyed playing them, but putting the time and effort that I knew it would take to be able to have success at levels I wanted to get to wasn't as easy as what baseball came to me. And that's when you kind of knew, because I felt like I could work 12 hours a day and still didn't feel like I was exhausted or tired out on baseball.
Right. Yeah, it's probably the biggest challenge a lot of kids have is I think a lot of it too is, playing year round versus, training year round, I think is different. I think the playing year round is where you kind of look into the injury prevention and that's where kids can be susceptible to getting hurt. But I think the training, as long as you're training, you have breaks, you have phases where you can keep it fresh and kind of give you the opportunity to take off some time from throwing. I think that's kind of where you find that balance. And to your point, if you can still train year round and not get burnt out by it and still enjoy it, maybe not necessarily playing year round, that's where I kind of think that balance comes in for the high school kids.
Yeah, and from playing with me, it doesn't always have to be physical working out to get better at baseball. That's what my dad instilled in me from a young age. We watched baseball games on TV, and we would go back and forth at what pitch was going to be the next pitch, or what a hitter was thinking, or whether a hit and run get put on. So there's so much mental ability in baseball to improve that you don't have to tax the body where you're putting yourself at risk to be able to get better. And it doesn't have to be 70 degrees and sunny outside for you to get better some way. And that's what I think growing up through high school, I was a good player, but wasn't really looked at as elite throughout the country. And definitely high school baseball's come a long way to where they have a lot more showcases and a lot more things that get seen. But even as in my area in South Carolina, I was considered a good player, but the ability to kind of think through situations and just to be able to have knowledge of the game and those kind of things that we worked on really helped me when I got to college and kind of put on some muscle, put on some strength, and was able to kind of now all of a sudden add some physical skills to mental skills that my dad had done a great job of just kind of continually work on. And that stays me to this day, even when I'm not playing or when I'm at home, sitting at home during COVID-19, I'm still thinking about ways that I could get a hitter out or I could face a certain pitcher, and I'm going through situations in my head to where if it comes up, I feel like I've already done that.
Yeah, I think that watching the game on TV and like you said, trying to predict pitches that may come, put yourself inside that game. I think it's something that maybe a lot of kids don't do as much nowadays because there's a lot more opportunities to play video games or to not necessarily get into that mental side of the game. Where I think watching the game and just watching the baseball game in the big leagues, the highest level, and seeing how guys pitch, seeing guys' approaches, I think that's kind of stuff that kids don't do as much of. When I think back when I was younger, I would watch games every day. In the basketball game, I would watch a lot more sports where I think that helps and can help guys advance their mental side of the game a lot more than just wanting to go hit in the cage nonstop and wanting to throw all the time. There's other aspects that you can really work on to make things better in the long run.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we want things so quick nowadays where we want it in 3-second clips, but the course of an at bat to me goes from the guy on deck thinking about what the guy's going to throw and just kind of watching guys' motions and not only seeing what their mechanics are for physically swinging or physically throwing a baseball, but just kind of try and get in their mind of like, what's he thinking right now? Is he locked in, or does he look like he's kind of standing all over the place, and just kind of see what happens? Does he have success when he looks like he's doing a certain way, or is it something that you may want to take into your game of, okay, this is what I think he's thinking, and just put those scenarios in and see what you would do in the same situation.
Yeah. When you were in high school, what was your summers like? Was it Legion? Was it travel ball? What was the options for you when you're coming through high school?
I played Legion ball my freshman and sophomore year in high school, and then my junior year is when I went to playing traveling ball in the summertime. So junior, senior year, played traveling ball, but both of them were fun. I enjoyed playing baseball, so it didn't matter where it was, but I think my parents did a good job of, for a while when I was younger, it was, okay, you can play your spring season and then you can pick either summer or fall. It was never, we're going to play January through November. It was always, okay. And then once we got to then I think once I got to my junior year, it's like, okay, if you really like it, let's keep rolling with it and play as long as you feel like you're healthy and you're able to compete.
Yeah. So you played college baseball at Georgia Tech. We played each other in college for a couple of years. I will admit, Matt hit a bomb off me in college. I think we're in the ACC tournament. Tried sneaking a fastball by you, didn't work. Hit a bomb off me. When you look at your recruiting process and kind of how that went out, and you think about your decision making to go to Georgia Tech, what were some of the biggest factors that you thought about as you went through that process? Were you heavily recruited? You'd mentioned that you kind of weren't initially, but as you go through that process, what kind of stood out to you in terms of what was important and what you really wanted to make sure that you got into college?
Yeah. Well, I would have gone to Clemson, but I wanted to make sure I got to face you so I could hit that home run. So that's
a good point. Yeah, I don't blame you.
No, I mean, I would say I was medium, marginally recruited, kind of starting my sophomore year in high school. And I know it starts a lot earlier now than what it did then. But, I was like, okay, college baseball looks like something I can do, but it was going to be at, maybe a school closer to home or a smaller school or school that I grew up watching and loved watching play. So I was excited about that. But then always wanting to, like, okay, we're getting little feelers from South Carolina or Clemson or Georgia Tech or Miami and schools like that. But it really didn't change till my junior summer. And I just went to a tournament and had one good tournament, was able to throw hard velocity off the mound and have a good tournament at the bat. And that's when all of a sudden, in the blink of one tournament, it went from, okay, I'm going to stay close to home and go play, to, okay, I've got choice between Georgia Tech, Clemson, Miami, North Carolina, schools like that. And all of a sudden and that's how quick it can change if, you're just able to perform at the high level in one tournament. But then it's about, okay, now these expectations have got risen. Maybe not you personally, maybe you've always known, hey, I'm a pretty good player, just, haven't quite got the exposure that I wanted to. But it can change that quick for all of a sudden expectations from the outside world will be like, hey, this guy could be good. Let's see what he's got. And that's when all the preparation up to that point comes into play. It's like, even when I wasn't being watched, or even when you're not being watched, what kind of work are you putting in? Anybody can work hard when somebody's watching them. It's what are you doing when somebody's not watching you? It's kind of what will stand the test of time when you get into that big situation and that big spot.
Yeah, it's kind of what we've emphasized to our kids now is like, now is the time where it's easy not to work. You're quarantined at home, but when we're called into playing, we're expected to be good right away. So the guys that put the time in over this break are going to stand out to the kids that didn't. And to your point, you look at the college recruiting process for you. It's slow. All of a sudden, one tournament, the right time, the right spot, you go off, and all of a sudden now everything changes. So that's such a huge thing for us, is you have to be ready at all times. You have no idea when it's going to happen. If the recruiting process hasn't started already, doesn't mean it's not going to happen. It may just happen later. We had an 8th grader commit to college a couple weeks ago, and we have seniors that just committed, recently. So like the timeline for everybody is different. I think that's one frustrating part for a lot of the kids can be is, when's it going to be my turn? But to your point, it's a great example. You went from, smaller recruiting to having some of the top schools in the country recruit you after having, one good weekend.
Yeah. And that's what it comes down to. What are you doing it for? What are you playing baseball for? Are you playing baseball because you love to play baseball and you want to work hard at baseball because you love the game of baseball? Or are you playing baseball because you want to go to college, or you want to get drafted, or you want to make money? And those things are out of your control for the most part. But if you're working hard because you love baseball, that's going to be there. And that's something that I think it's why when I wasn't getting recruited by the bigger schools, it didn't really matter to me, because I felt like as long as I keep getting a chance to play baseball, that's what I want to do.
And was your mindset when you're going through this, like, I had to be a Division I player, it had to be D1 or bust, or are you just looking at what's the best fit for me? What's going to give me the best chance to play right away, or to play in a program I believe in? Coaches, are those all factors that came into play where it wasn't just like I have to go D1?
Yeah, it was. I wanted to play at the highest level possible, but I wanted to play at the highest level where I could be challenged, where I could challenge myself, where I felt like I was like, okay, I'm having to put myself a little bit out on a ledge. I wanted that feeling when you go into your freshman fall and you get there and you're like, okay, these guys look really good. Can I compete with these guys? Mm-hmm. And I didn't want that experience where you felt like you weren't challenging yourself on the baseball side of it. But I think I forgot what the other question was.
When you factor in, like, was academics part of your equation? When you look at what you wanted to be for your major, is that part of the discussion as well as you're going through this process?
Lined up with me with Georgia Tech, because I love math, and a lot of it is what gets put in our head when we were younger. When I was growing up, the '94 team for Georgia Tech was when they had Nomar, Veritek, Garcia Parra, and it's just like, wow, these guys are stuff. So that was always in my mind of, okay, well, that's a college program where it's like, okay, these guys are training guys to go to the next level. But every school I went to, there was something about them that I really liked. And it just came down to, and I've noticed this in all baseball clubhouses that I've been in, baseball clubhouses are fun. You have a good time with guys. There's not one I've been in and been like, man, that was a grind going to work every day. It's fun, and that's what I enjoy doing. So it didn't matter to me whether or not I was D1 or I wanted to play at the highest level to challenge myself. But the cool part is the relationships and in the clubhouse and, okay, what guys are you going to battle with every day? And that's what I really enjoyed, and kind of knew that whatever school I picked, if that mindset wasn't there, that was what I was supposed to bring to that school.
Well, we look at the draft and kind of how that process was for you. We'll kind of get into the fact that you're the 5th overall pick out of college. In high school, was there talk of you being drafted out of high school? When you look at the process from where you were as an 18-year-old going into college and where you were after 3 years in college, Georgia Tech, do you feel like if you would have been a guy that went into pro ball right away at 18, you'd been prepared as if you would have been after 3 years of college? So that 3 years in between there, how much did that mold you into getting to where you go? And do you look back at thinking, man, that college career shaped me to have a 10-year career in the big leagues? And was going in the draft out of high school ever really a thought for you?
College definitely helped me, and I always, looking back, I feel like my parents did a good job of raising me to where they kept me humble, to where I think mentally I probably would have been able to handle the grind of traveling around and being an 18, 19-year-old kid throughout the minor leagues. But physically, I really was when weights really became a big part of me, and where I grew just in strength in college, and that helped me just to be able to get through a season. And that's where it would have been a grind from going from playing 28, 38 games in high school to playing 140 in the minor leagues. It would just have been an absolute grind on the body. So college definitely helped prepare from that aspect. It also helps prepare of just the heightened level of competition that you get from college was huge. I mean, there was, like I said, I didn't really kind of get on the draft boards till my junior year, but then from there on, it was kind of talk, okay, where are you going to go? What would it take? But at that moment, I'd already been thinking for my freshman and sophomore year, I'm like, college baseball looks awesome. I want to experience college baseball. And that was just me personally. I mean, some guys, college isn't for them, but for me, it's like, I want to see what college baseball's like. I see how much fun these guys are having playing. I see how much passion for the game there is. I wanted to experience college baseball. So that's why it wasn't hard to me. I knew making my decision was like, okay, even if something happens and I don't make it to minor league baseball because I went to college, I want to experience college baseball. It's one of the steps that I want to take on my journey. And it happened to work out well, and really, it really improved me as a baseball player, but it also helped me improve as how to handle myself when I'm away from home and away from my parents. And it set me up for, some pitfalls that some guys go through. I was able to go through that in a little bit more controlled environment in college, which was huge.
Yeah. So, like I said, you were the 5th overall pick in 2007. After obviously a very, very good college career, all the accolades. Again, one of the bigger catching prospects in our era coming through. What was draft day like for you? Did you have a pretty good idea you're going to be a fairly high pick? Did you think the Orioles were going to be a team to pick you? Where did that kind of fall in, and what was that day like for you?
It was weird because we had different scenarios that could all play out. And it's one of those things where it's like, you're getting told all these things like, okay, you could go here, you could go here, you could go there. And it's like, but nobody really knew. So it's like, okay, we've got all these different situations, but none of it means anything until it happens. And going 1 to Tampa was a possibility but we knew Price was probably going to go 1 to Tampa. And then after that, it looked like Pittsburgh at 4 was the next team that was really high. And then Baltimore at 5. And we really liked the spot at Baltimore, just to kind of the situation of a lot of the young guys that were coming up, and they were kind of, you could see the minor leagues were starting to grow with Baltimore, and they needed a catcher within the next 2 or 3 years. So we felt it was something that was like, okay, this looks like it lines up. So that's ultimately where we were shooting and hoping to go, because after Baltimore, then it becomes, okay, you could drop to 12, you could drop to 17, you could drop to 24, and just certain teams So certain teams are high on it, and certain teams are looking at other routes. So it was, I don't know, it's a little nerve-wracking just because it's one of those things, again, that you don't have control over. I like being on the field. I like being able to play because I feel like, okay, all the work I put in has helped me to get a spot. But when you're sitting waiting for somebody else to say, call your name and say, we want you to play for organization, there's not much control there. So you kind of try and enjoy it as much as you can, but also knowing that, you've got to be able to figure out how to make the best out of each circumstance that could come out of that.
Yeah. So you kind of fast forward into pro ball. You come in as one of the top prospects in all of baseball. I think at a couple years, you're number one prospect in all of baseball. And you look at your your minor league career, you were fortunate enough to get through the minor leagues pretty quick. We spent 2 years as teammates in the minor leagues. And when you look at the minor leagues, transitioning into that, to going from the high pick to the number one prospect in baseball, how did you, I guess, find ways to manage the expectations of being the savior of the Baltimore Orioles?
The weird thing is it's always crazy timing. Like so much of baseball is time. Like when do you hit your peak? And really that 2008 season for me is when it's like, okay, everything kind of started to click, and that came along with all the prospect rankings and all this. And I didn't really concern myself with the prospect tag, other than the fact that I knew that everybody else was looking at that, and I was going to get the best out of everybody else, because everybody wants to knock down the guys at the top. So I felt like every day I had to show up the field, I'm like, I got to be prepared to defend what they have ranked me as a prospect. So every day was kind of like, okay, you're not taking it away from me today. And it was fun. It was fun that year to play every year. Like, okay, I got to prove it today. Okay, I got to prove it today. I got to prove it today. And that's one thing that I think I wish I would have carried it through my career even more than I did. It helped me throughout my career, but just that mentality of you always want to be open. You want to help everybody that you can. You want to teach everybody what you learned. Our coach tells a great Albert Poole story where he went through and gave the minor leaguers just a speech of everything he did and his whole routine and his whole what it takes to be a great Major League Baseball player like him. And then at the end of his interview goes, and you guys should all be trying to take my job. And then in the interview he goes, but none of you are taking my job. And that's, that's what my mentality was.
Yeah.
That you're going through was, I don't really know if I deserve to be number one prospect, but you're not taking my number one prospect tag. You got to come and get it.
Yeah. And the one thing I'll say too, being a teammate of you in 2008 was I played with guys that were the big prospects, who acted like the big prospects, who felt like they were supposed to be handed stuff. And the one thing I will say about you is you're always an awesome teammate. That's the one thing I look back at, is you're just a great teammate. And I think, unfortunately, a lot of these guys get that prospect status, they start having success, and then they change and become a different person. Where I look at, playing together in 2008 all the way to playing together in 2013, you're the same guy the whole time. So I think for kids, it's important to understand that whether you're the top prospect or the lowest prospect, the mentality and the work has to stay the same. And the one thing I'll never forget, so in 2008, I think you're the minor league player of the year, 30-some homers, 90-some RBIs. You hit like 350 something. It was a crazy season. And I'll never forget, there's a day game in Bowie. We're in AA, and you had an off day. It was a day off. So as catchers, you can't catch every game. So they're like, Matt, you're not playing today. It's a day game. Don't even put your cleats on. Put the turf shoes on. You're not going to play. Don't worry about it. It's all good. Check out mentally. So we're sitting there, and all of a sudden, it's like bottom of the ninth. We're down by 3. Bases are loaded, 2 outs, and they're like, hey, Matt, you want to hit? And you're like, yeah, sure, I'll hit. Not ready, not prepared. You probably took BP before the game, but you've been sitting for 9 innings. You walk up there and hit a walk-off bomb. I'm like, that's when it kind of hit me like, okay, this guy's different. I mean, how many guys can sit for 9 innings? Walk up to the plate, bases jacked, hit a bomb, walk it off. That was the kind of stuff that I remember experiencing. Was like, it was just different with you, because, I mean, you played at a super high level. So 2008 was a crazy year. We go in 2009 where we're teammates in AAA. And at that point, everyone's kind of saying, okay, what else does Matt have to do? It's time for him to get to the big leagues. So I got to tell this story too. You stole all my thunder my rookie year. So I get called up on May 25th, make my major league debut in 2009. I throw 5 innings, get the win. And the first question I get after the game is, hey, Matt Wieters is getting called up tomorrow. What are your thoughts on Matt Wieters getting called up tomorrow to the big leagues? I'm like, thanks, Matt. Appreciate it. Because they announced during the game that you were getting called up to the next day. So getting that call, I remember the day for me like it was yesterday, getting called into the office. What's going through your mind, and how was that day for you getting called up to the big leagues?
Well, back to the first story of the Grand Slam after not playing. That actually taught me a lesson to always be prepared, because I had mentally shut down, and at that point in my career, I hadn't realized, okay, as long as you're on the lineup card, you got a chance to go in the game. And I grabbed our second baseman who hit about 125 that year's bat and had no cleats on. So I pretty much hit in tennis shoes with someone else's bat. And it almost made me think maybe I should be hitting in tennis shoes more often. But yeah, so that gave me a teaching point. I was fortunate enough to run into one, but it gave me a teaching point too, to always be prepared. And as long as you have an option, or as long as you're on that lineup card, be ready to go in the game. But then the call of it, it's funny. I think they had to call me up because I was actually one of the most fired up I've ever been in a AAA game that day. Our manager already got thrown out. I was not being very polite to the umpire as I should have been. And I was about to get thrown out. And I get called into the office in the 5th inning. And the manager had to tell me that I was getting called up the next day because he was worried I was going to get thrown out of the game. So he said, don't get thrown out of the game. You're getting called up. And then that's when they announced it. And yeah, sorry to steal your limelight, but
yeah,
we actually, every rookie that came up that year won their debut start, which was awesome.
Yeah, I think we set a record that year. I want to say it was either 6 or 8 guys made their major league debut that year and won. That was a fun year. We were a lot of rookies, a lot of young guys. We kind of all had come up together throughout the minor leagues. And I think back to 2009, that was a fun year for us. We obviously weren't very good in the big leagues, unfortunately, but you could kind of tell that it was starting to change. You had the young guys coming up. I remember your debut. You first at bat, get a standing ovation. You could just feel like the energy in Baltimore was changing. I think that you were a big part of that. So, 10 years in the big leagues now, 10 plus years. You're in your 11th full season, correct?
Yes. Well, this is my 11th full season.
11th full season.
Yeah.
So, in the big leagues, what kind of stands out to you? What was you said 4-time All-Star, you won 2 Gold Gloves. What are you most proud of when you look back at your big league career so far? Still more years to come, but what do you think is some of your highs from the big leagues that you look back on?
It'll sound boring and maybe look fish, but I just enjoyed being able to show up at the park and just be a professional every day. Like a lot of the other cool stuff, which we have so many cool stuff in different cities. We go through different hotels, different golf courses we get to play, different restaurants we get to go to. It's all great, but just the fact that we get to pick up our briefcase and go to work at a Major League Baseball stadium and do that every day and say that's my profession, that still hasn't got old to me. I enjoy and take pride in just like, okay, this is a cool job to have. Let's treat it like a job. Let's have fun with it at the same time. I think you can do both. I think a lot of people are like, oh, just have fun like when you were a kid. I'm like, I still enjoyed working at baseball even when I was a kid. So why should that stop now?
Nice. One thing I ask about, you have 9 stolen bases in your career.
I got to get one more. We got to play.
One more. Do you remember all 9 stolen bases?
Yeah, because I normally try and get 1 a year.
You've been thrown out 4 times. Do you remember what catcher threw you out?
Well, they were all 3 2 counts. I don't get thrown out. Yeah, that was me looking at managers like, are you sure? Because I don't know if this guy's going to put the ball in play. And
all 2 outs right here. Yeah. That's awesome. Yeah. I will say, when you look at your ratings on MLB The Show, I'm guessing your speed's probably not one of the better ones. But when you hit balls in the gap, you can jog into second or try on the bases. You only need to have that much speed. I'm going to ask some fun questions about the big leagues. What was there a time in the big leagues where you were starstruck? Where you're behind the plate, so you have to talk to all the batters that come in. So you have a unique perspective of literally being able to talk to every hitter that comes in the box. Some guys talk more than others. Was there a time where you're in the box where you're like, holy crap, or you're behind the plate where you're like, holy crap? What was that one moment where you felt kind of like starstruck, like, wow, this is different?
It cut out a little bit on me, but I think I got the gist of the question. Yeah, and that's actually the guy behind you, and it wasn't playing in the game, which was I'm
about to tell that story. So this way, I'm still mad at you about that. We got a chance. Yeah, I'll tell that story in a minute.
Okay, we'll save that one. But the guy behind you and Chipper Jones were my 2 guys growing up, and there was just something different when you're around them. It's just you put them up on this pedestal your whole time, and then they get up, and then you can throw a guy like Jeter in there, and when those guys come in the box and just know your name. Now, granted, they may have just looked at the lineup card right before they went up to the on-deck circle, but it still means something to you as a kid when you get one of those guys who's done so much for 15, 20 years in a game, and they'd be like, hey, what's up, Matt? Hey, what's up, Jason? How you doing, man? And then they go about their business. It gives you it gives you a lot of respect for that guy because they don't have to do that. But Griffey and Chipper were and Jeter especially were two of the most courteous guys to young guys in the league. And it made you feel like, okay, I know we're playing each other and we're going to compete against each other, but the baseball world is a bunch of brothers who are working at it together.
So this picture behind me, my dad had somebody paint for me. That's a picture of me facing Ken Griffey Jr. in Safeco Field. Matt is catching in that picture. So that was my highlight of my career as well. I grew up a Griffey fan. He was my number one guy. I wore his cleats. I actually told him that before a game one day, and he's like, "Man, I feel really old." I'm like, "Look, I wore your cleats when I was in Little League." But that trip to Safeco, my wife Emily's from Seattle, so it was always very cool for us to go. Seattle's ballpark was amazing. Clubhouse was always great. And that was when Griffey was on the backside of his career, so it wasn't necessarily good Griffey, but it was still Griffey. So that day, I got a chance to meet Ken Griffey in the field, asked him for an autograph. He signed a jersey for me. Faced him that day, highlighted the career. That night, we get back to the hotel, and you call me and say, "Hey, I'm going to go down to the lobby, get something to eat, have a drink. You want to come down there with me?" I'm like, "Look, man, I'm tired. I'm going to go to bed. I'm going to take a rain check this time." And he's like, "All right, I'm going to go out there and grab some food, and I'll see you tomorrow." I'm like, "Sounds good." So think nothing of it. Next day, we get to the clubhouse, and Matt comes in and goes, "Man, you really should have came to dinner last night with me." I'm like, "Why?" He's like, "Went down to the bar, and I sat down at the bar for about an hour and talked baseball with Ken Griffey Jr." I'm like, "You've got to be kidding me, Matt. You didn't text me. You didn't call me. You didn't tell me it changed." And you're like, "Look, man, you told me you're going to bed. I wanted to leave you alone." So I'm still bitter about that. I'm still a little upset. I'm glad you got to experience it. But, I mean, sitting and talking baseball with Griffey for an hour is got to be something pretty cool.
Yeah, you never skipped out on another dinner reservation we had after that.
For sure. But yeah, again, those are the kind of guys that it's just different. Like you said, when you get around them, it's different. They don't act like they're big time, but it just feels like you're around somebody different. So, but back to give your credit, when you look at your career, you were an all-star. So you went to 4 all-star games. So when you look at the upper echelon of players in the big leagues, I was a really crappy big leaguer. I had one good year, otherwise I stunk. You, on the other hand, spent time in the all-star games. So when you get to these all-star games, did you feel like you were a part of that fraternity now, in a sense, where you're with these different guys? And did you feel like you were perceived a little bit different as you start making all-star teams?
I didn't, and that may just be me. Other guys may say differently, but I felt every time I was at one of those, I had to prove myself even more. Just it's nice to get all the honors and the accolades, but if you don't feel like inside, like, okay, I deserve this, or I can compete with this. So every time I would have one of those games, I would grind so hard just to be able to compete. And it's supposed to be a fun, laid back environment, but it was like, okay, no, I got to prove that I belong here. And that's kind of been my mentality all the way through major leagues, and why I think I've been able to get through 11 years is each day I go to park, I feel like I got to prove that I belong here. And if you sit back and say, okay, 7 years in, like, okay, I've got 3 or 4 all-star games and 2 gold gloves, and it'll just happen for me. That's when it ends. As soon as that's the mindset, it's too late. Somebody passed you, and that's the whole back to the pool comment. As soon as your mindset is, all right, I'm good today, you just lost ground on somebody, and somebody's coming for you.
What are you more proud of, your gold gloves or your all-star games?
Gold gloves for sure.
Yeah. I tried stealing one of those gold gloves when I was at your house one time. I saw it. I want to take it home with me, but I think it's heavy as heck.
Yeah. I gave one to my dad, and I have one here, and I thought I was going to get a lot more, but then Salvador Perez came along. I'm like, oh no, I should. I don't know if I should give that one to my dad, but, I like gold gloves because they were more of a team and a pitching staff. Everything went into it, and that's what's fun about team awards. Are always way better than individual awards.
And one thing people may not realize is, Matt's 6'4", 6'5". So from a catching standpoint, you're a bigger catcher. For me, it was always great throwing to you because it was a bigger target, a huge love target. And like you said before, when you were in college, you pitched. You're in the mid-90s as a pitcher, so the arm was always good. So as a pitcher, it always felt good having you back there because everything's getting blocked. B, I had a great target, and C, guys are getting thrown out at second base too. So 2 quick questions. Who's the besides me in my prime?
Oh, good. I'm glad we took that one out.
Take me out of that. Who's the nastiest pitcher? Who had the best stuff that you ever caught?
I don't know if I can limit that to one guy. I'd like to put a hybrid of a few guys in there. I had 2 guys with the Nationals I caught in Scherzer and Strasburg. obviously you put those two together. Max has one of the best sliders I've ever called and one of the best fastballs I've caught. And Strasburg has one of the best changeups and one of the best curveballs. So you put those guys together, it'd be pretty special. We have a young guy with St. Louis now, and Jack Flaherty, who it's fun to see them at different points in their career, and you can kind of see the mentality of those guys is just different. It's on every pitch, every second. They're on of how they can get better, how they can improve. So those are probably the top three. But one of my favorite guys, and we played together with him, that I loved his mentality every day was he showed up at the park. It didn't matter whether he gave up 10 runs or gave up one hit. He was the same guy the next day. He was the same guy after the game. That's Chris Tillman. Like, he's one of those guys that he took the ball every time, no matter how he felt. And win or lose, throw great or not throw so great, he was the same guy after the game. And there's a lot of respect that you earn in a clubhouse when you can go and just be consistent. Like, you don't have to, the highs and lows are something that can wear on guys throughout the course of a year. So when you can go in there and just be consistent and they know that you're giving it everything you got, win or lose, that's enough for guys.
Nice. So when you think about you as a hitter, we'll kind of dive into some of the hitting stuff for some of our kids that are listening and parents. When you think about hitting, talk about the importance of like the tee. Like when you think about the tee, is that something that's part of your daily routine when you're hitting off the tee? What's kind of your thought process as you think about just the basics of hitting, starting from scratch, getting loose, breaking down your swing? The tee, was that done for you, and kind of what do you think about as you're hitting off the tee?
The tee is the best place for me to just have a laboratory. When you're trying to tweak something or trying to work on something, that's where the tee is in place, because I want to have some sort of controlled variable. If I'm working on my stride, if I'm working on my bat path, if I'm working on, just where my weight's balanced, I want to have a controlled variable. So that's where the tee comes into play is I know that ball is going to be there. So if I'm getting to it with the path I want and with the balance that I want, we should be able to have good results at the end of it. And off the tee, you can actually, the results tell you something. Like, a lot of times in a game or in BP, there's a lot of other factors that go into it. Okay, was it a good swing and I just missed the ball, so maybe the results weren't bad? But off the tee, the ball's sitting there, so you shouldn't miss it if you have a good swing and your eyes are open. But
is the tee something that you use every day? Most days?
Yes and no. I used to use it every day. It used to be the start of my routine. And then as I got older, it got to, okay, are we working on something? Because when I got older, I didn't want to do things that I didn't feel like, okay, this is improving me. So that's where the tee, it came into, okay, do I need to work on something that doesn't feel right? And then I would start with the tee. But most of my other drills, I don't necessarily need the tee for. There are a lot of hand-eye stuff, and just to kind of get that part, just the eyes and hands working together, as opposed to tee for me was more just a mechanical. Okay, my swing doesn't feel good. Let's start here, so I know I can groove my swing off the tee and then move to a ball moving towards me.
When you think about your hitting approach, you obviously, as you're earlier in your career, minor leagues, you were a big power guy, a lot of home runs. I think you had 3 years in a row with 20 homers in the big leagues. When you think about this craze we have right now with the launch angle, when you're thinking about your hitting, are you trying to stay up the middle? Are you trying to stay on a line? Are you thinking about lifting the ball? I'm sure in some situations you might think about trying to hit the ball in the air if it's a sac fly. But when you think about your best swing, your best ball, what goes into that? And is it a thought of staying on a line? Is it staying on the ball path? Like, what goes through your mind when you think about your best swing?
Well, I've had the fortunate experience to learn from a lot of great hitters. So I've got a lot of different, everybody thinks about things. There's not one way to hit, and there's definitely not one way to think about hitting. So guys say things a little bit differently, but for the most part, everybody, all good hitters and really good hitters are trying to do the same thing. And me being slow, ground balls, even before launch angle, were not good for me, because most of the time when I hit the ball on the ground, I was out. So launch angle came in, and we came in with a different, it sort of changed the game around a little bit in the way people thought about it. But it's kind of how I always thought about it. It's just the terminology that got put with it that kind of changed. But to me, and Daniel Murphy, we would always get into big conversations about, he never wanted to hit the ball on the ground. He wanted to hit the ball in the air, which I got. But he also did some other things too that doesn't come out with the launch angle thing. He had 3 negatives. He said, number 1 negative, striking out. I never want to strike out. And the second one is, I never want to hit the ball on the ground. And the third one is, I never want to pop up to the infield. Every other result he was okay with. So those were his three. I don't want to do that. Okay. And then we got into a little deeper conversation. That was, okay, well, what's that mean? And so he actually picked out a number of what he was shooting for. And everybody thinks launch angle, I think way up in the air and 30 degrees. His number was 10 to 12 degrees, because the slugging percentage when guys hit the ball 10 to 12 degrees is ridiculous. So you can look up how high it is, because 10 degrees is about a leaping jump that will nick off the glove of any infielder. So even if it's at somebody, it's over their head. So that's what he thought. So then he went and he actually put tape on the cages where 10 degrees would be at different spots. And it's not as high as you think. So now all of a sudden you kind of get that idea of, okay, that's where I want to hit it. And then from there, as opposed to thinking, okay, I'm going to hit it there, to me was, what part of the baseball do I need to hit for it to go there? And that helped me. That helps me simplify it to where even if I'm struggling, I can say, okay, look for the middle end part of the baseball, or the down and end part of the baseball, and try and hit that part. And that way, your mechanics and just your reaction will take over. If you can get to that part of baseball, it gives you a good chance to get a hit.
So that's exactly what we talk about here. Is a 10-degree launch angle gives you a chance to, if you miss hit it and you go to 15 degrees, it's a ball in the gap most likely. If you miss hit it and it's 5 degrees, it's a line drive at the shortstop, worst case scenario. So we've talked about the exact same thing, where the launch angle, if we want to hit the ball on that 10-degree line up in the air, but to your point, it's not up in the air. It's a line drive at that 10-degree mark. And that's why we had targets up in our cage as well, thinking on the inside part of the ball, you're going for here. On the inner half of the plate, in the middle and away, those are those spots you're trying to hit, because what it does is it allows you to hit a ball at some level and still have success. Or if you're thinking about hitting the ball in the air and you're not 100% on time, it's a pop-up and you're out. Where if you are able to stay on the ball longer and think about that 10-degree mark, it allows you to not be perfect and still have success if the ball's put in play.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think, and one thing that's changed throughout the game since I've been doing it, and I've kind of learned is I mean, I always wanted to, I want to work as hard as I can. I want to sweat as much as I can in the cage. I want to swing as hard as I can. And that may have been the right thing at that time in my career. But as I've gotten older, one, out of necessity for preserving the body, but also think that just out of working smarter as well as working harder, is finding, and we have a lot more tools of measuring devices now, where you can just figure out, okay, where can I generate the power as consistent and as easy as possible, so that you can always kind of have, okay, I'm in the cage, I don't need to be swinging 120%. I don't need to be swinging 100%. I need to find that 80% number where I feel comfortable, to where it's like, okay, I can repeat this. And that's the biggest thing with me. How repeatable can you get it? It's hard to repeat things when you're swinging, Mach 3 all the time, as hard as you can. But what can you do to repeat it? And then you just slowly creep that up. And as soon as you can't repeat something, back it down a step. And that's one thing that's helped me throughout my routine is, okay, how can I repeat this just to where, and you can make that adjustment throughout the course of a game of, okay, this is what I did because I didn't repeat what I know works.
Yeah, for sure. When you're struggling at the plate, what do you find out is a key for you? Obviously, you're a switch hitter, so you hit from both sides of the plate. I'm sure it's different from the left side and the right side. But when you think about when you're not going your best, what kind of brings you back to finding what that swing may be? It's kind of a broad question, but when you're struggling, do you typically find out that, hey, I need to go back to this to get myself back locked in? What do you find is typically the most helpful for you when you're trying to get back in your groove?
I had two consistent things that when I'm struggling that I go to, and they're completely opposite. So maybe it'll hit one person and maybe it'll hit another person. But one is just to do something simple, something I knew I could do. It could be, I know we just talked about hitting the ball 10 degrees, and me and Murphy are always getting an argument about this. But if I was really struggling, I'm like, you know what? I know I can hit a ground ball to second base if I'm hitting right-handed, or I know I can hit a ground ball to shortstop if I'm hitting left-handed. So I would try to do that. A lot of times I would miss my one spot and I'd actually get a hit just because I'd lowered my stress level of thinking, okay, I don't know if I can do this or not. It turned into a positive. I know I can hit a ground ball short. And that gave me the ability to execute a better swing than what I had doing, as opposed to getting my brain in the way. The other approach that Mark Reynolds gave me, and I still love it to this day, and I tell everybody when they're struggling, it's like, it's a lot of times when you're swinging at bad pitches because you're a little bit anxious, you're a little bit nervous. He goes, you know what my approach is? He goes, if I can hit it 400 feet, I swing at it. And I mean, that's how his career was.
Yeah.
But it helped me because I went up there and all of a sudden it's making me get better pitches to hit because there are only a few pitches where you can hit 400 feet, at least for me. So it's like, okay, this made me shrink my zone enough to where I'm like, okay, yeah, I can hit that middle ball. Everybody can hit the middle ball, but you don't hit the middle ball if you're thinking about all the other pitches you have to hit.
Right.
So he'd say, if you can hit it 400 feet, swing at it. And all of a sudden you stop chasing pitchers' pitches, and you may take some strikes, but they probably were pitches that you weren't going to get a hit on anyways. And you were more ready for that mistake when they did make it. And you just had to be comfortable with it. Okay, if I take 3 painted pitches down and away, I walk back to the dugout and I executed my plan. And that was the big thing that most hitting coaches that I've had have always said, what was your plan up there? Did you execute it?
Yep.
Now, if it's a terrible plan, eventually you got to change your plan.
Right.
But that should be your goal every time you go up to the plate is, here's my plan. How do I execute it? After the bat, did I execute it?
Yeah. For everybody that's watching, if you guys want to start firing some questions and we'll ask Matt some questions from you guys as well. We'll talk about some catching stuff here in a little bit, but there's a couple of questions I had written down. A couple of questions are coming in. So if you have questions for Matt, start typing those in in that live feed that's kind of on the side or underneath your video. First homer, who's that off of?
Tim Redding.
Nice.
Yeah, wind-aided ball. I thought I popped it up to straightaway left field, and it went out first row. Had great Baltimore fans there that kept I forget who was playing left. Kept the left fielder from jumping up and getting it.
What did you get the ball, and did you have to trade? Did you have to give the fans something in exchange for the ball?
Yeah, I think we gave them something. They may have wanted a Jones or Markakis thing more than something.
Can you somebody else's autograph?
Yeah,
that's awesome. When somebody asked, and this is a real question, I got a text. What was it like catching me? Was the question they wanted to know. Let's talk about good me, like maybe like 2010, not the year that I had a 7 ERA and I got shelled. What was it like catching me?
Honestly, it was fun because I felt like I could call any pitch at any time, and I felt like I could sit off the plate and feel like, okay, he's going to hit the spot. We might get a call, we might not get a call, but the command was always one of your strengths with your fastball. So I felt like, okay, even if we don't have some of the other off-speed pitches today, we can move this fastball around, and your fastball is 1 pitch, but it's actually 4 pitches if you can throw it down and in, down and away, up and in, up and away. And so it was fun because I felt like every time we went out there, I had weapons with you to call. I'm like, I can call whatever I want to. And there was never it's the worst feeling as a catcher when you get back there and you're like, this guy's got 1 pitch maybe that I feel like I can throw in a pressure situation. It was never the problem with you. I'm like, I can still throw anything I want to, and you were going to execute.
I threw 80 poo, so I had to hit my spots. Yeah. I didn't throw as hard as the other ones, but yeah, I appreciate it. Thank you. Did it bother you when you were younger when people would get autographs from you and sell them on eBay?
Depends on the age bracket for me. Kids are kids, and they can do silly things, and they can do whatever they want to with it. When that's somebody's way of making money, that's when I get a little problem. It's more like, hey, let's work on getting a job where something that you do great, you can get paid for.
Well, I was your mail guy when we were in Baltimore. So Matt would get buckets of mail like every day, and I'd go through all his mail. I'd filter through them. And if you went to a Birkin baseball camp back in the day, there's a good chance you got some Matt Wieters autograph stuff because you always signed a ton of stuff for the Birkin baseball camp. So I went through a lot of your mail for you, which was kind of fun.
I still remember how you would go through it. You'd go through it and you'd be like, oh, no, it's not a good picture. It makes you look fat. We're going to put this one over here in your pile. Oh, no. Your tooth's all messed up here. We're going to put this one in this pile. So that's how you would determine. So
I had to keep the good one in circulation.
A lot lower when you were doing that, but it did help me not have to sign as many pictures.
I was just trying to take care of you. Be a good teammates. Now that you're obviously have a lot of Brewer fans that are here with us. I was at your opening day last year when the Cardinals played the Brewers. I was there to watch. Thoughts on the Brewers? Thoughts on Miller Park? What kind of stands out to you when it comes to the Brewer fans and to Miller Park?
I liked Miller Park. I think the NL Central's it's neat. It's neat to play in because all the parks are unique. They're all, for the most part, outside of Pittsburgh, they're all pretty good hitting parks. So I like that part of it too. I don't know. The Midwest fan is great. It's a blue collar fan who they really respect playing baseball kind of old school style, and I like that. Baltimore is like that. When we were there, it's like when you make a good play, when you do something right, when you get a runner over from second to third, you got cheered for it, and I like that part of it. There are certain cities where you play and it may have been the biggest at bat of the game of a sac fly or something like that, and you get no cheers because they're like, this guy got out. What's he doing?
Yeah.
But Milwaukee, Cincinnati, Pittsburgh, St. Louis, those fans, they understand the game, which is fun to play in front of.
Do you hate the Cubs?
Well, I'll put it this way: every team that I'm playing against that day, I hate them. So I held no grudges against them. Now I held no grudges against Boston. I have no grudges against the Yankees. But each game I've played them, I've wanted to beat them more than anything else.
Yeah. Do you feel like that rivalry from the Cardinals and Cubs, now that you've been a part of it, does that feel different when you play those guys?
Really, and this comes from Yachty more than anything. He's that same mentality where it's like everybody that's trying to beat him, he hates them.
Yeah.
Like it doesn't matter what team, especially the division teams, because we play them so much. And there are constant times when Yachty's like, this is our division. Nobody's going to come and take what's ours. And that's the mentality that we carry. And that's the mentality you have to carry, because it's the same thing as like we were talking about earlier. Somebody's always trying to come and get what you have or what you want. How do you protect it? How do you defend it?
Is there any rookies in the league that remind you of a young Matt Wieters, and young guys that you see playing that you can see yourself in?
Let's see here. I don't know. I'd like to say Riamuto, but he's way better athlete than I ever was. Let's see here.
I think the top pick for the Orioles this year, the kid from Oregon State, I saw him. I saw some resemblance of a young Matt Wieters there.
Yeah, we'll see. He's got a good swing. I like watching him. I like watching his swing. It's always, that's the amazing thing is it's always going to be how's it play at the major league level, and it doesn't stop with when you're drafted. It doesn't stop when you're a good college player. It's a constant improvement, because especially now information gets out so quick, and guys improve at a faster rate than they ever have. It's are you improving faster than the guy who's trying to come get you?
Yep. When you think about preparing yourself mentally for practice or for games, when you talk about the mental side of things earlier, how do you prepare yourself for a game? What are some things that you do to lock it in? And I guess how important is practice when you think about practice leading up to the game? How much crossover and carryover you think practice has in the way you play, and what did you do to mentally prepare for those?
I think anytime you can put yourself in a non-pressure situation into a game situation is huge, because that can translate into the game. Pressure does some crazy things to people, but if you're able to put yourself through a situation that may come up before it actually comes up, you're so much more prepared to handle it. And Showalter was one of the best managers I ever did that, where we felt every day we went onto the field, we were more prepared than the other team in the other dugout. We felt like we were prepared for anything that would come our way. And it's you can control that. You can control how much time and effort you put into preparing for possible situations. You may not get those situations. You can't control whether you get them or not. But if you get them, you can control whether you prepared for them.
Yeah. With you being a switch hitter, we have some guys in our academy that on the younger side are looking at that. When did you start switch hitting, and when did you realize that? Did you start left or right when you first started hitting?
I think I'm naturally right-handed, but I don't know, because my dad had me switch hitting when I was 5, and I do everything else right-handed. But my dad played minor league baseball for 5 years, and he saw how valuable switch hitting can be for guys, because there are quite a few guys who get to AA or get to AAA and can't hit a breaking ball, and all of a sudden they have pitchers that can throw them breaking balls every pitch, and then their career's over. So that's what he saw. He saw switch hitting was an avenue that helped guys be able to succeed, in different aspects of it. And I like switch hitting to me now. I didn't realize it when I was growing up, but it's been huge. It's huge for just being able to have some sort of symmetry between your body and preventing injuries. I think it does a great job of keeping guys from being too built up on one side, and you'll see guys that, pitchers that their whole right side is bigger than their left side, just because. And baseball is a very robotic sport, to where if you're not using different motions, you're going to get overworked on one side, and that's when I think injuries can happen. So I've like switching. The hard part about switch hitting is you always have one side that you feel like you're struggling at. Rarely in my career have I said I feel great from both sides. But the good thing is that tells you what I need to do going to the field every day. It's like, okay, I'm going to work on which side doesn't feel good until it's my better side. And then that happens and you switch again. And it's a constant seesaw. Okay, left-handed feels better today. I'm going to work on my right-handed swing. Or right-handed feels better today. I'm working on my left-handed swing. And it gives you direction when I got to the field.
Do you think it's ever too late to start switch hitting? Is there an age, or is there a type? Or because I feel like at some level, if you've been training your body, your eyes, your mind, everything for so long, for so way, there's got to be a point at some level where it's maybe past the point of return. Or do you think I'm sure it's not an age where you say once you turn 12, you can't do it. But at what point, or do you rely on your coaches to tell you, look, like your left-handed swing is probably not going to get to a point where it's going to be really ready? I think the hard part too is when we have mostly predominant right-handed hitters. So it's going to a left-handed swing. That's going to be your primary swing when you get into games, because you're going to face mostly right-handed pitching. So I feel like it's hard to go from a righty facing all righties to go to a lefty because all you're going to see is the constant right-handed pitcher. So is there a point where you think, let's just stick to one or go for it? Or what does that kind of look like to you?
Well, I think you don't want to be in between. That's for sure. You don't want to be like, I don't know if this is going to work out. I always said our bodies are amazing things. You can teach yourself to do so many things if you get your brain out of the way and you realize I can do this. So I don't think there's an age where you could say, maybe 21, 22. Once you get past that, you're either probably not playing baseball or it's too late. But I think if you really believe you can do it, I think if you're a gifted athlete, you can train your body to be able to do it. It's going to be a lot of work, and you've got to be able to take the struggles and realize that the decision you're making is going to lead you to some struggles, and you've got to be able to stick with it. You can't say, okay, I think I can be a good switch hitter. I want to make myself a switch hitter, but this is a big situation. I want to hit right-handed here. It wasn't a mentality that you could take. I mean, me growing up, they're mostly all right-handed pitchers. So what my dad would have me do was he'd have me take 2 at-bats left-handed, 2 at-bats right-handed every game. And he's like, he goes, I don't care. Obviously, if I saw a left-hander, I hit right-handed. But if I saw a right-hander, I would hit him both right-handed and left-handed, just because he wanted, like, okay, you've got to get swings both ways. We can't let your right-handed swing not get any reps and your left-handed swing get all the reps. So that's what he would do with me at a young age until they started throwing a lot of breaking balls. And because I've been doing that for a while, I obviously wanted to hit the breaking balls from the opposite side.
Yeah. Let's touch on catching a little bit. First of all, what is the pop time thing drives me crazy. Because I think that all these kids saying I throw a 1-7 this. I'm like, okay, you see like a guy like yourself or all these top guys throwing, they're in the 1-9s. What's your best pop time that you have that you recorded?
That's a pre-Tommy John, that's for sure. But I think I had a 1-6-8 one time on somebody's clock, which we actually had a catcher in spring training, a young guy. I timed it with myself. He threw a 1-6-3 from his knees, and I'm like, oh my gosh. But I like the pop time. But the key for me with the pop time is where's the throw, because it's not just the pop time of your glove to their glove. It's
right, and
obviously that's what gets recruited and written down by the scouts. But it's your glove to being able to put a tag down in front of the base, because that's how you get somebody out.
Yeah.
So if it's offline or if it's too high, you've got to add those seconds to it.
Mm-hmm. As a catcher, I guess obviously you take a lot of pride in in not giving up runs and all that kind of stuff. But when you think about yourself as a catcher, what are some drills that you like that you've seen kind of help yourself throughout the process of preparing yourself to get better and better? What are some drills that you think could be part of a catcher's daily routine?
I've actually learned, and that's what's great, is I'm late in my career, but I'm learning a lot since I've been with the Cardinals that I never knew before. I mean, we had some really fun drills when we were with Baltimore, and they're fun, but getting to work with Yachty and see what he puts his mindset into just what you would think would be the monotonous drills for a guy that's got 9 gold gloves. But he literally, we do every day at 6 or 7 in the morning in spring training, we do bare hand receiving, where somebody's just standing 10 feet in front of us and flipping us balls, and we're just working on catching it and bringing it back to our face mask. We're just working on, we don't want anything where we're catching it and taking our hand away. It's always catch it and bring it back. And he takes his time. He makes sure he gets every rep in right. And that's this big thing. It's fundamentals. You have to do them right. It doesn't matter how fast or how quick they are. He does them right. I mean, he'll take time. It's first I ever heard this. He takes time and works on, after he blocks the ball, when you got both knees on the ground, which knee he should pick up first, because he doesn't want to get off stride. He wants to be able to have the most efficient move to pick up which knee and then throw the ball down second base. And I actually been working on that now, because that's one of the only drills that we can do without people throwing to us right now. But you get down your stance, and you want to go and pick up your left, you want to pick up your right knee, pick up the ball, and then you're ready to throw.
Yeah, I mean, it's obviously, when you think about catching it, there's so many fine details, and having a chance to work with a guy like Yachty, who's done it at such a high level for so long, I'm sure is huge. When you're behind the plate, a guy steps in the box, you obviously have a scouting report on a guy, you have an understanding of what his weaknesses are, but how important is for you as a catcher to read each pitch, read each swing, watch the reaction of the hitter, and how does that kind of influence what you call in the next pitch?
Yeah, well, I mean, at first always starts out your pitcher's strengths. You can't go away from your pitcher's strengths or what your pitcher's confident in. If he doesn't think he can throw it, he can't throw it. That's kind of, or it's your job to make him believe he can throw it, and then you can call it. But it's great when the pitcher's strengths lines up against the hitter's weaknesses. Doesn't always happen, and that's where you kind of will mix and match and say, okay, well, John Russell gave me pretty good advice of how to read hitters when you're lost. And he always says, start from the feet and work your way up. And that's kind of, as a catcher, you get a feel of whether a guy's striding open, whether or not he's striding closed. And if you can't get something there, you can move up and you see, okay, is his hips flying open? And then you can move from there, and you can go to the hands, and you can go to the head. And it's a good starting point. It's like, okay, now I've got it where I start. And then you'll kind of start feeling like, okay, you could just get this innate sense when you're sitting next to him of, okay, this is what I feel like he's doing. And then that's trial and error. That's what catching is, especially at younger levels, is trial and error. This is what I'm feeling. This is what I'm going to call because of it. And then it's feeling confident to be able to talk to somebody about it and say, what'd you think about this? Well, this is why I did it. And we'll have some strong conversations in dugouts with pitchers and pitching coaches about, why'd you call that? Or why'd you throw that? And the big thing for me is you have to have an answer. There is no wrong answer, but you have to have one. You can't just say, I don't know, I just threw down a finger. That's not an answer to me. And that was always one thing that was like, okay, what was your reason for calling it? And you have to be able to stand up to say, this is why I said it. And then to be able to accept whether somebody says, well, that was stupid, or whether somebody says, okay, I see what you're saying there. Next time we'll be better prepared for it.
Yeah. I think from a catching standpoint, more than any other position, it's very hard for hitters to not take their at-bat to the field. So for a guy that plays center field that may only get 2 balls a game, you maybe can get away with, even though we shouldn't, potentially, taking that strikeout to the field and being upset for an inning. From a catcher standpoint, how important is it for you to not take your at bat to you on the field when you go behind the plate?
That's huge. It's probably a saving grace for me, as well as one of the hardest things you can struggle with, because it's like you've got to treat it as 2 different things. You can't take hitting behind the plate. But here's the great thing about it is, if you get 4 hits, or if you call a game where they only get 2 hits, what's your better chance to win that game? It's obviously when you call a game that only gets 2 hits. So there are 2 ways where you can help your team win every night. And there's one way where even if you don't get a hit, where you only have 4 bats, you call 130 to 150 pitches on a good game. You have 150 decisions that can help your team win. Mm-hmm. Hitting, you have 4.
Yeah. Yeah, so you give the catchers so much credit because they can impact the games so many times. We're almost done here. A couple more questions. Which umpire do you feel gave you the best zone when you're behind the plate? Who's the best zone who's a guy you had behind the plate that you loved back there, so you had a good pitching zone?
Paul Embel is one of my favorite umpires, because he has a quick call. So it's like he sees it out of his hand as soon as it crosses the plate, he makes the call. So he knows he may miss one a time or two, but you realize he's going with pure reaction, and he's not letting hitter or the catcher influence him too much on what the pitch is. And I respect that. He's going with his call, and he'll live up to it if he missed it.
When you think about, you've had a ton of coaches over your career, really, really good ones in the big leagues, college. What do you, when you think of your best coaches, what kind of attributes do they have, and what do you think has helped you the most in terms of like your learning approach to baseball? What coaches and their mentalities kind of set them apart, you think?
Biggest thing is I really felt like they cared about me getting better as a player as well as a person. As some of my best coaches have, you feel that care. Like there's the unselfishness of a coach where it's like, I'm trying to make you better for you. It's not in it. It's coaching is a unselfish act, and those are the great ones where you feel like, okay, this guy is really setting me up. He's put me in the best possible situation to succeed, and he's willing to take time out of his day to be able to help that happen.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, that was awesome. I appreciate you coming on with me, Matt. It's been fun. Again, one of the best teammates I ever had, one of my best friends. Been the same guy from day one. I think about high A all the way to the big leagues. It was awesome. So I can't thank you enough for doing it. Hopefully the fans and people that watched it enjoyed it. Hoping they get a chance to play soon. Last question I'll ask you. Will we see Major League Baseball here soon?
I feel so. I feel like we will. I think, hopefully we keep going and get going in the right direction, and we can get back out and play them. But I know all the guys are itching to get back out there and going, and as soon as we can do that and keep everybody as safe as possible, but more than anything, hopefully get back to a little bit of normalcy pre-COVID that helps people forget about some of the grind and some of the struggles that it's been like for the last 6 weeks. So it's like I said, hopefully we can be a little bit of a reprieve for people and back to normalcy. Yeah,
well, we're looking forward to you retiring in a couple of years, moving to Green Bay.
Yeah, I'm doing the Burke and Wheat show.
You can come up here and be our catching coordinator, hitting coordinator, and all that good stuff. So we're looking forward to getting you back up here at some point. But again, thank you for joining us. It was awesome. And maybe we'll do it again. And when the season starts, best of luck, and have a great year.
All right. Thanks, bud.
Thanks, Matt. See ya.
Yeah.